but we're still very much so at the very starting line. The gentlemen that we have sitting up here are doing some really phenomenal things within the hemp industry. What we're going to do is have each of them introduce themselves, give about 3 to 5 minutes of introduction, talk about their products, what they're doing within the hemp industry, and then we're going to take questions and answers that I'll help facilitate. We're going to try to wrap up probably around 1:45, 1:50, give you all a 10-minute break before our next panel, so that way you can also enjoy the rest of the wonderful exhibitors that we've got back here. So without further ado, Morris, I'm going to let you start off.
Hello, everybody. My name is Morris Beagle from Colorado Hemp Company, and I am from Loveland, Colorado, so welcome to my town. I grew up here in Loveland on a 17-acre farm. I graduated from Loveland High School. I went to Colorado State University. I consider myself really a true Coloradoan and very happy to be, at this point in time, involved in the hemp industry. I come from the music industry. I worked for a large music and video distributor in California for 7 years. I moved back here in 1995 and started a record company, worked with lots of bands and artists for about 16 years, doing a variety of production stuff, CD packaging, printing, merchandise. And when I moved back here, I got introduced to a gal named Carolina from a store called The Emperor's New Clothes, which was inspired by a book by Jack Hare called The Emperor Wears No Clothes. And anyway, at that point in time, I was really introduced to everything about industrial hemp, and it really inspired me, and it stuck with me up until 2012 when in the Amendment 64 legislation came about. In that, the wording of that, there was opportunity for farmers here in Colorado to grow industrial hemp, and I thought, wow, the music industry is dying, and here comes the hemp industry. So I jumped in and started Colorado Hemp Company with my partner, Elizabeth Knight, who's back there at the table. And since then, we've got involved with hemp paper, hemp events, hemp merchandise, and working with a lot of hemp entrepreneurs, which is really key for me, is to be able to work with all these people who share the same common passion and ideals about moving hemp forward. So I feel real blessed by the people I'm sitting with here on the table, who all have been inspirational to me. These guys are all incredibly smart and doing amazing things, so I'm just looking really forward to seeing what they have to say about what they're doing, and look forward to answering your questions. And thanks for coming out. I appreciate it.
Hey, I'm David Von Villen. I'm with the Elite Botanicals, and just a little bit on my background. I've been a cultivator for about 25 years or so now, and obviously not always legally, but kind of a long-term passion for the plant overall. I mean, we all came from somewhere. And so a lifelong history with the plant. I actually kind of was first exposed to hemp via Jack Hare, who was just mentioned, and his book, The Emperor Wears No Clothes. I met Jack in 1995, actually at an American Book Association trade show where he was there promoting his new edition. And we had a relationship for several years. And anybody that ever met Jack knows that he would not stop talking about hemp for food, fiber, fuel, and medicine. I mean, that was his mantra, and man, I mean, he would talk until you're blue in the face about it. And a lot of it with a lot of validity that we're seeing come true now, right? So it's a huge opportunity that I'm honored to be part of, honestly, at this point. My background is in music as far as my degree, and then I came out of the computer science industry. As a computer hacker, I ran a team of security specialists that were reverse engineers and wrote weaponized exploits for the government and stuff like that. That company got acquired a year ago or so, and Dr. Shackelford had been a friend of mine for the last few years, since about 2009. And we had developed a strong relationship. He told me about CBD and the need for CBD in the, kind of in the medical community. I don't know, it was a couple of years ago now, probably early 2013, and I didn't know a lot about it, so I did some research with him and through him, and realized, I mean, it's just another dominant cannabinoid in a plant that, we've all been growing for a long time, just not one that, necessarily people have been breeding for, and that there was this huge deficiency. Folks that did have access to the right genetics were hoarding them. There just wasn't a lot of availability, and that's actually where I got first hooked up with the gentleman sitting next to me, because he was out throwing around CBD cuttings around the state for free. And so I got to talk to Bill, and that kind of started me on my path. And so when we sold the company, I bought a farm here in Loveland, Colorado. We have 10 acres online now. It's a 40-acre farm. We also have the greenhouse property that's there on 402, depending on how you guys came in. And so we've been in production there since October of last year, and have a little retail store in the front of that. And then really we've been just on a warpath to collect CBD genetics and grow as much of them as possible, just to help solve some of the deficiency in the marketplace. Our primary business function now is production and extractions, and we work with Mary's Medicinals and Mary's Nutritionals on their product lines. So we've coupled with them on product development and product manufacturing, and basically just handling our company charter of being a premium supplier of as much as possible until Iowa comes online, right, and all the other places that then we don't have to worry about these small plots, and can really take this into a production agriculture.
Hello. Thank everybody for coming. Fantastic to see so many people here. My name is Bill Althouse, and I was a lifelong energy engineer before I retired from that. It actually caused my first contact with cannabis back in the 70s. I pioneered photovoltaics. I was the head of engineering for the first distributor for the first manufacturer of solar electric in the country.
Oh,
and
there you, Bill.
okay, is that better?
Yep, much better.
Okay. Arco Solar was the first manufacturer, and exactly, irony. But anyway, one thing happened. In every state, there's a community that gets famous for growing cannabis. In California, it was Humboldt. In Colorado, it was Netherland. In New Mexico, where I was living, it was a little old mining town called Madrid. One day, some guys walked into my shop, obviously alternative types, and pulled out $20,000 in cash, wanting a solar-powered water pump that was backpackable. I kind of figured out what those boys were up to, designed all their pumps, and pretty much had an irrigation system that was for square miles around that little town. But that was how I got started. I've always found technology fascinating when it's in the nobody knows phase. And that's where photovoltaics was when I started, where hemp is now. And that nobody knows is really interesting. How I got back into working with this full time, I was in Santa Fe, and I won the county fair with some exotic French strawberries I was growing, and got front page. And next thing you know, a bunch of guys walk into my booth at the Santa Fe Farmers Market going, so, you won the county fair? Yeah. You can grow anything? I go, well, I don't know. And they go, how about marijuana? And I went, well, I don't know. I've seen it grown on big scale if that's what you need. And so they hired me. I became the grower for one of the first dispensaries in the state. But I made one condition. I had read something from Israel. Some guys, Raphael Meshulam, and them had discovered something called the endocannabinoid system. And this is revolutionary in medicine. Until now, in medicine, it was a parts business. You got a brain guy, a heart guy, butt guy, foot guy. Everybody gets a part, and there was some assumption that these things were not interconnected. The discovery of the endocannabinoid system, the software of wellness, now says everything is connected, and CBD is one of the triggers to be able to regulate it. Ordinarily, we produce a hormone called 2-AG, and if your 2-AG level is low, you could have defined that as illness. Medicine's freaking a little bit because we're kind of talking panacea here with CBD, which everybody in medical school learned there was no such thing. But I made a deal with these guys in the first dispensary license. Okay, I'll be your grower, but I want to grow this stuff that doesn't get anyone high. They thought I was insane. This is over 5 years ago. And was successful, became one of the first CBD producers in the United States. And New Mexico was interesting. We didn't have storefronts. So my first 100 patients, I delivered to their houses every 2 weeks, mostly terminal patients. And I got to see the changes in all their lives. And when you change that many lives, it changes yours. We got a lot of press, front page statewide. taking the buzz out of the pot was the banner headline about what a miracle we had uncovered, and we got buried. And the people I was working with saw this as a business opportunity. So they cranked the price to $800 an ounce, and all the people I've been visiting in their homes every couple of weeks, 3 years, basically got cut off. Went back to being terminal dining patients instead of feeling good, and it didn't sit with me. And David mentioned I first came to Colorado. I started a program called the CBD Free for All. The breeder of Harlequin, one of the top CBD varieties, gave me the genetics for this program to make it free. And so I gave away thousands and thousands of cuttings all across the state of Colorado. During this time, I was doing a lot of homework about what it's going to take to make a viable industry in the state of Colorado. Bunch of stuff from Europe. I made connections around the world on the technology side of hemp growing. I'm now the editor of Hemp Technology for Hemp Connoisseur magazine and was Doug Fine's technical consultant for the book Hemp. My main interest right now is two things. What does it take to make Colorado a leader in the hemp industry? And this is a big question. It's one we need to really, really tackle because, Kentucky, they're saying we want to make Kentucky to hemp what Idaho is to potatoes, and they're backing it with millions and millions of dollars. All their universities are highly engaged with 31 research projects right now. They haven't really allowed commercial. Colorado's more Wild West. You can do anything you can finance here. Not so in Kentucky. In Kentucky, you got to do something that makes sense for the Kentucky becoming the leader. That's the qualifier. We need to add that kind of language to our development here. And again, thank you all for coming, delightful, and let's make Colorado a leader.
Oh.
My name is Rick Trojan with Moonrise Extracts and Colorado Cultivars. I come from an entrepreneur background. Last company outside of cannabis was a software company in the healthcare space. We did patient check-in on touchscreens right when the Recovery Act was passed a few years back. Sold that, got into the cannabis here in Colorado, where I'm from. Wanted to stay local, wanted to stay near the family. Ended up with now Colorado Cultivars has 300 acres planted up in the east of Colorado. We do Moonrise Extracts as the product side of the company. We do mainly CBD extractions, but we also do services to farmers, decortication, come down and take down your harvest. We do processing as well, and we're going to have some seed available coming up at the end of September. Cultivars is really a group of us, fourth generation farmers that have been doing this on an industrial scale. So we're really approaching this not just from hand planting and female only greenhouse. We're doing it on an industrial scale. So we have GPS technology where the plants are, what cultivars. We have about 28 different cultivars available now, and then we have large scale extraction coming down for CBD, for decortication, seed separation, all those services. We're really looking at it as an industrial farming versus having farmers come on board that want to use it as a crop rotation for their corn, their sorghum, or alfalfa, or just to develop hemp on their farms and increase the nutrients in the soil. No herbicides or pesticides are used. All of our farms are on organic farmland. We're focused on no heavy metals, no pesticides, very clean product, very clean plants. All the plants, of course, are industrial hemp, and we're really looking at this on a large scale. And we're starting it this year, and we're looking to expand even more next year.
I can't see everyone, so I'm going to stand up. Ed Lerberger with Pure Vision Technology. Mara, on behalf of all of us in the room, thank you and your staff for hosting the second annual Hemp Symposium. So I first want to acknowledge Mr. Casey Ives, our Director of Business Development, is here, and Michael Bright, our Marketing Manager, is here. And if you guys have any questions or anything and want to give a business card, either one of those gentlemen will take care of you. I also want to acknowledge two people here on our Pure Hemp Business Advisory Board, Linda Parker and Morris Beagle. And is Daniela here? Oh, there's Daniela Vergara. Daniela, who's a speaker in the third session, is on our technical advisory board, and we're honored. So thank you for coming. Okay. So, this is pretty amazing, and I just want to start by saying, Colorado, we're doing it.
Oh,
We're making it happen. And a lot of growers, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business people, a lot of speculators are here. And we're trying to prove that we can do it. Now, we are one of the first states to legalize it, and there's challenges in what we're doing and the way Colorado's rolling this out versus Kentucky versus Tennessee. And we have challenges. I had 2 attorneys in our office today that wanted to see our facility. We sat down with our technical team, with some of you know Bob Hoban and his partner, and we asked a lot of questions. And this comes full circle. We've got some investors that have been circling, and we're trying to raise money right now to expand. There's a group of investors that are very interested. They even told us, look, we want to put $1 million into your company. And our business model is to scale up, and you're going to hear about this more in a minute, but we have a pilot plant in Fort Loveland, and we're going to build our first commercial plant in southern Colorado next year. And the investor said, you know what, Colorado doesn't have the laws right. It's going to be somewhat illegal. We'll put money in if you guys do this in Kentucky. Well, whoa, no one's ever been that radical with that kind of viewpoint. So to your point, we've got some things to work out, and it can be worked out at a congressional level and in Washington. And right now, Congressman Polis has a bill out. Mitch McConnell has a bill out. And if we can get either one or both of these bills passed, it'll kind of normalize it for the entire United States. And that's what we really need. And Mara, if you can pass this important message on for all of us. Right now there's gray area for the growers, for the producers, and for the sellers and the marketers of these CBD products. The crazy thing is you can import hemp from Canada and China and make products and sell them across state lines, and it's totally legal. You can do the same with Colorado or Kentucky hemp, and it can be construed as illegal. This is crazy. And we all need to work together, and we all need to, state by state, if we could work together as states and have a cohesive plan, that's what we're promoting, and that's what we're asking our congressional leaders to do. And this works on both sides of the aisle. So hopefully in the next 6 months or a year, we're all going to be in a better position to grow, to process, and to share this incredible crop with the people in this country and the world that really need it and want it. So what we do is we take biomass and convert it into fiber, sugar, and lignin. And we've been doing this for about 17 years. We've developed a countercurrent reactor where biomass gets fed into one side of a reactor and it goes downstream. Liquids get injected on the other stream and travel in counterflow in opposite directions. So the pulp that we make from biomass, instead of a 2-hour pulping process, we do it in about 4 minutes. So it's a very innovative and environmentally friendly technology. After years of developing our countercurrent process, last year, about 9 months ago, we began processing industrial hemp for the first time. So we've been very fortunate with our years of experience to make extracts, to make pulp, to make sugars, and to make lignin from industrial hemp. We've been sending out samples all over the country. Just within the last week, some of the pulp samples that we sent to Auburn University, and they have a paper and resource school there, they got the data back to us that showed our industrial hemp pulp has a strong potential to make all sorts of paper products. And, this is great news for us. It's great news for all of us. So we don't have to go through the craft pulping process that's dirty, environmentally unfriendly, takes a lot of time, and it's very expensive. We can take a relatively small reactor and put industrial hemp in and come out with paper products, with paper that Morris and his company can sell and work with all of you to make business cards, boxes, poster board. And so we are really trying to be on the front end of this industrial hemp revolution. And, you know, that's what we do. The lignin can be used for making plastics, composites, binders, carbon products, graphene, and plastics. And the sugars can be fermented into many things. We've taken hemp sugars and fermented them into ethanol. We've got very good data on it. So we welcome all of you to take a close look at what we're doing. We're establishing collaborations. As I mentioned, we have a pilot plant in Fort Lupton, about 45 minutes away. We're planning to scale up next year in southern Colorado. So if you have any interest in working with us on any level, please let us know. We're here for the long term. We plan to move into other states, and we plan to move into other countries. And there you have it.
Thanks, Ed.
Okay.
So I'm going to get the question and answer portion started. Because I'm loud, I'm not going to use a microphone. One of the questions I'd like to pose to you, gentlemen, while the audience starts thinking about things, we're never going to be in Kentucky. We don't have the grow season for it in terms of growing industrial hemp as a crop. In what ways can Colorado set itself apart then in terms of innovation and entrepreneurship, and in what ways are you gentlemen working towards facilitating those changes? Whoever wants the mic first.
Technological development, the opportunity. I think some of our universities, particularly CSU, are some of the top in the country, and to develop technology is the opportunity. First, we need to look at what everybody's doing elsewhere in the world, create joint ventures with those. If we think we're behind Kentucky, take a look at Germany. The research they're doing, they're so far ahead of us, it's not funny. So what's going on in the world? What assets do we have as a state? How do we deploy those assets and get them going to create unique products that will make the industry survive?
Well, I think that we can be everything that Kentucky can be.
Plus some.
So
Plus some.
we've got more land.
Better
Way
growers.
more farmland. And we've got the CBD side of things where you can have 4 or 5 crops in a year in your greenhouse. The growers that are here in Colorado are probably some of the best growers in the world.
Thank you.
So I think that there's really opportunities for Colorado. I also think that the way that we're set up with our regulations allow for entrepreneurs to have more freedom rather than being under the thumb of government regulation like they are in Kentucky. From my standpoint, I've already got relationships in Kentucky. I've got a MOU with the Department of Agriculture there. I've got relationships in Tennessee, Virginia, North Carolina, Oregon, Washington. So at this point for me, and I think many others, that we're going to be working across state lines and connecting the dots. So it's not just about Colorado. It's about the United States, and then it's about the Earth, the entire planet.
So I'd say one is the certified seed program, which I know the CDA is already working on. So just allowing farmers to be able to go out and access certified seed that may be rich in cannabinoid content versus oilseed or fiber varieties. I mean, I think that helps and goes a long way. And then, you know, regulation-wise, I think we sit somewhere in between especially on the CBD side, in between the marijuana industry and, you know, traditional hemp farming. And regulatory-wise, that makes for, you know, some weirdness, I guess, right? The cannabis side of the industry seems to feel like they have the rights to any and everything CBD-based, which is crazy because honestly, I mean, at least from my perspective, if everybody on the cannabis industry side had been growing a bunch of CBD, I wouldn't have ever had the fire lit under me to go out and help solve that huge deficiency, right? So I don't think that's placed appropriately as far as where their concern lies. And then and kind of, the same sort of feelings on the oilseed and fiber. I mean, just diving back to Mr. Hare, I mean, he said, hemp for food, fiber, fuel, and medicine. And I think, any application that we can provide based on this plan is a great thing. So I think regulatory-wise, and I don't know if some of the other guys may be able to confirm or deny this, but the 0.35 on, or 0.3 really as our reg on the most potent part of the plant is pretty restrictive, given that you have states like West Virginia and Nebraska and Louisiana that are all going at 1%, at least as far as the overall plant's concerned. And I was asked the other day by somebody that's fighting for hemp changes and everything, and I was like, that's the one thing I would change. If you could go up to under 1%, maybe even put a qualifier in of you also need over 10% of CBD or something, right? So that you're not dealing with like a 1-to-1 that both of them are just at 1%. It allows a lot more biomass to be created, allows the extraction methodologies to be a lot more effective in what you're actually producing from the plant, and then you can still use a parameter of 0.2 or 0.3 for any product set that's actually released to the market, because you dilute back down. I mean, I don't think, most of us anyway aren't trying just to release raw hemp oil or CBD oil out into the market. It's normally in a tincture or in another product set or in whatever. So, I think more flexibility, which I get. Colorado is actually on the side because we're the leaders in the space. We always approach things a little more conservatively because we don't want people to come down on us just because we're the Wild West or something, right? So, I mean, we can play it conservatively up front, be able to establish the program and establish that there's nothing, manipulative or bad going on, and then allow a little bit more flexibility on the back end to let folks that are, using the plant in a very specific way, effectively get everything that they can out of it.
Questions from the audience? Jeff?
This is a geographic, topographic type question, unique for Colorado. With our mountains here and with some flat areas that are dry, what does higher elevation, 8,000 to 10,000 feet, do, pro or con, for the growing of industrial or CBD-rich hemp, so long as the soil is good, it's outdoor, and there's ample water? And the specific question is, what difference is the elevation do for the light?
So the
Provided you
question,
have southern exposure, all things being equal.
so the question was, just so that way people in the back can hear, how does the elevation into 10,000 feet affect growing hemp, and then in terms of sunlight and flat plateaus and what Colorado's elevations have to offer this crop in terms of industrial hemp and CBD-rich cannabis?
Simply, UVA, UVB is much higher because there's less air to filter through. That's the one variable that altitude adds, and there's some unique things that happen when you change spectrum like that.
So it's better.
Different. Could be better.
Just to add to that too, I would say, our intensity overall helps compensate for, so I work with a lot of guys out of Cali, and California has a much longer growing season. It's different than it is here in Colorado, but we are, from our outdoor crops, able to overcome some of the deficiencies of our shorter season based on the additional intensity. I mean, we saw, similar output previously, but Bill's right, it's different because, the cannabinoids and essential oils and everything in the plant react differently to different light spectrums, and especially with, the intensity of the UV up here.
So we get calls from farmers all over the state. And back to the last question, like Morris said, we can grow hemp in Colorado at every corner of this state. And in particular, we are dealing with a group from Steamboat, and they're growing hemp, and it grows well up there. And one of the next sessions you'll be hearing from Daniela, cannabinoids are actually produced to help protect the plant from UV. So if there's a lot of UV, there may be more cannabinoids produced the higher you go. We don't have enough data, but you certainly can grow hemp just about anywhere in Colorado, and it's something that is happening now.
Daniela?
So I just have one comment about that. I think show that there's a lot of variation in cannabis in general. So what we need to do is to understand which strains are good for mountains, for example, which ones are going to be good for tropical areas, and then grow those particular strains that are going to be good for this environment. But this is totally doable. I mean, the variation is there. It's something that we're definitely going to be able to do, and we might be able to make better strains than Kentucky, for example.
Yeah, and I think we have a leg up on that given how quick we started into it. I know everybody up here that's growing different strains, we've seen the same thing, right? We have some that are great in a greenhouse environment where everything's warm and fuzzy and protected. Others that do really well outside, like one of our varieties that we grow in the greenhouse effectively just gets destroyed outside. I mean, the branching is just too weak, and the flowers get too heavy and it'll break off of the branches, whereas we have another, actually one of Ben Holmes' auto varieties, that its deficiency is the thing grows like 16 feet tall and gets huge flowers on the top of it, so the wind will beat it up. But when it comes to cold tolerance and resiliency to that wind overall, I mean, we get stems on the thing that are trunks, right? And even regardless of when you put it in, it's almost just naturally going to throw out that kind of woody fiber on the stem and, really handle. We saw it last year. We had, kind of the cold snaps in early October, then it warmed up all the way to the end of the month. And they survived that like champs, whereas we had other cultivars that would just peel off almost right away as soon as the cold hit it. And so I think, where we're getting to and where I'm getting most excited about what everybody's working on is between stuff like the Genomic Project and then all of us actually out there grinding at getting the plants grown. We're really discovering which work better, which ones don't, and starting to create hybrids off of those. I mean, I start to see all the other growers popping hybrids now that, are starting to, accommodate for, hey, okay, we had a really high CBD, very low THC variety. It qualifies as hemp, but is it the right cultivar to be able to grow out here? And I think we're just starting now to see a lot of those breeding projects come to fruition that'll help, basically smooth all that over.
Other questions? Sir.
My question is for Ed. Do you need to decorticate before you put it into the machine?
The question was, does Ed need to decorticate before he puts it into the machine?
Decorticate.
Okay, by the way, this is a great question. Paper from hemp has been made for centuries, and historically it's been decorticated. And there's two primary parts to hemp stalks, the strong fibers and the hurd. And the hurd historically does not make good paper. So we challenged that premise because we don't take 2 hours to pulp, we take 4 minutes. So what we've done is put the whole plant in our reactor to make pulp. So I'm not sure about this, but we may be one of the few technologies in the world that's using the fiber and the hurd to make paper products. So typically the answer would be yes, you should just use the strong fibers to make paper products, but we have kind of started a new regime where we're using the entire plant.
And so the paper or the fiber gets processed down into these different components also? Or does it come out as a separate piece?
Okay, so he asked if the fiber comes out in separate components, and actually it does. If you can picture the countercurrent reactor and the grinding of the biomass, and as fiber becomes solubilized, it actually can break down all the way to sugar. And whether it's a monomeric or a one molecule sugar or an oligomeric or a chain of sugars, they become soluble, and instead of going downstream, as soon as they become solubilized, they go in the opposite direction and they leave the reactor. So part of the fiber and the very short fibers leave the reactor while the long fibers remain. So what we're actually doing is converting all of the fiber into two separate products. The real short fiber that gets mixed in with the lignin and it turns to sugars, and the extracts leave, and you're left with the longer fibers as the pulp.
Other questions? Yes, Jeff.
Yeah, I have a 3D printer company here in town, and we extrude all sorts of different plastics, PET, ABS, PLA, and we have some that are even mixed like PLA with algae, for instance. And so I was curious, can I buy a pallet of hemp plastic pellets anywhere, or where's kind of the world at with hemp plastics right now?
I can answer that. That's all you. Okay. Did everyone hear the question? Okay. So we make a really nice fiber, and we've tried all different chemistries, but this fiber in particular, we're using only water in the countercurrent reactor, and we end up with this gorgeous fiber. We've sent this fiber around to different companies. One of the companies is a plastics company, and they do injection molding. So they've taken our hemp and they've infused it, and they've come up with a very nice, it's oil-based plastic resin infused with hemp. So we can make that product today. So if anyone is thinking of making plastic products out of anything and you want it hemp infused, we can provide you with that hemp. But the real art in this discussion is what we're working on now, is to take the sugar from hemp and the lignin and make plastic, 100% plastic from lignin. And I swear, this is one reason we're trying to raise money right now. We've got the science and we've got the pathway. We need to staff up and we need to buy more equipment to make a 100% pure hemp bottle and plastic products and things for 3D printing, etc.
Other questions? Sir, in the back.
I have a question, just follow up from an earlier question. In your guys' opinion, how far away do you think that we are? How many seasons do you think we're from having a stable genetic
That might be a better question for a research and development panel, but we should let these guys answer as well.
Say it's a conventional crop. If you're corn or soy, there's a number of levels, and each one takes a year. Breeder level is when it comes from the developer. Foundation level is when it's planted out. At fall, it's harvested and given to seed companies. Seed companies plant it, and then they sell planting seed to farmers. Then farmers plant the planting season seed, and then they harvest grain. So in the best case scenario, it's 4 years.
And just to add to that, I mean, Bill's talking about when you can actually go out and buy hundreds of pounds of seed to really, to be able to plant a field properly. Currently, there are stable, reliable seed stock that will stay under the 1%, and then, I think most people in this room probably know, your THC kind of creeps up there at the end. So, anything that's going to be up to 1%.
0.3.
Finale probably has 5 or 6 weeks in there of where it's well below the hemp parameters. Those seeds are available now. There's a handful of breeders working on projects and have been for a while. There's one of the guys from Sin City Seeds that's actually been working with traditional hemp cultivars and then crossing those out, trying to raise the CBD content and getting stable varieties. The challenge is that right now you're buying them by the individual seed, right? So, when it comes to loading up 20 acres worth at 20 pounds an acre, suddenly it becomes exorbitantly expensive and untenable for most farmers to actually execute on. But they're available now, right? But otherwise, Bill's right. I'm figuring 5 or 6 years before you actually see it readily available for the masses.
Yes, sir.
In regards, this may be just for Ed, but in regards to clothing manufacturing, does your company, I guess, A, provide that type of solution, and then B, what's the price on material?
The question is, does Ed's company or any of the companies up here provide material for clothing manufacturing and textiles?
That would be
in general?
EnviroTextiles, all you viewers online.
Well, currently, no. The textile fiber apparel thing, I don't think you're going to see that really available here in the United States. I don't think we're going to compete in that market. And I get this information from Summer and Barb from EnviroTextiles, who have a big hemp textiles company out of Glenwood Springs, and Larry
Largest
Serban
in the
out of Hemp
US.
Traders in L.A. The Asians just dominate that market. I think what you'll see is there will be fiber that'll be used as a mix with alpaca. You'll see some of the boutique stuff, but we're not going to compete in that market at all, at least for a decade. I mean, it's going to cost several $100 million to create a manufacturing facility to do something that could compete with them.
I have a follow-up question for that. So then if textiles are not where we're going, what are the products that you see Colorado really taking hold of and advancing?
CBD, building materials, and we haven't even touched on the building materials. I think building materials will be something you'll see tremendous movement on here in this region. And the bioplastics and composites, like Ed was talking about before, I think there's tremendous promise with that. But the CBD is going to be the big golden nugget here in Colorado. But you know, beyond that, again, building materials, composites, bioplastics, pulps.
Let me just follow up after you.
Yeah, Morris, I think you're right. Building materials is going to be a big one. Insulation, hempcrete walls. Animal bedding is a big one we're looking at. Feed for animals, taking the seed cake and giving it to animals, cows, the dairy farms. Mixing it with some of the fiber from the plant will actually help the cows have 4 stomachs, so it'll help them actually absorb more of the nutrients from the plant and from the seed. I think those the pet industry as well, I think are all big industries that we can get into. But that, to wrap up from before, that's part of what Colorado can do is we can become the knowledge base for all these products, for trying different cultivars, for getting the right seeds for the right cultivars based on what your final product's going to be. Is it going to be high in lignin? Is it going to be used for fibers? Is it going to be used for building materials, specifically for CBD? Those types of things is what Colorado can do, and we're already doing, and we can continue to do and be the leader in the U.S. And people would come here to learn how to do that and take that back to their states. That's a big opportunity, I think, for the state.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that question. And Morris, I think it's time we have a business advisory board meeting. So we've learned a lot about this space of making fabric. By the way, this shirt I got from Morris and Lizzie, a hemp shirt. So Chinese dominate the world market in making fabrics, and they have cheap labor, all right? But what it's about is chopping the stalks, letting them lie in the fields in a process known as retting, where you actually turn it halfway, and it sits for a week, and then you turn it again, and the fibers come apart from the herd, okay? And it's very labor intensive. We've been approached by a European-based company that has a great technology to ret and decorticate, and they've been trying to find partners in the U.S. so we can bring fibers and fabrics to the U.S. market, and we hope it's not going to take 10 years. I agree with Morris, it's going to take time, but I think in the next 3 years we're going to see the U.S. making strong fiber for clothes and apparel and so forth, but it's going to be a learning curve, it's going to be expensive, and we definitely can compete with the Chinese. I mean, think about it. They're making fiber from hemp, they're shipping their fiber over to here, it's being processed here, and why can't we compete with that? I mean, I'm here to challenge that. I think we can grow hemp in Colorado, process it here, and compete with the Chinese to make anything they can make. We're going to hopefully set out to prove that.
Oh.
I wouldn't count out fiber. There's a number of things out there. If we say we're going to use, 1920 technology, the Chinese win. If we're not using 1920 technology, I mean, Ed's company is an excellent example of what's possible. But in fiber, in textile fiber, I mentioned the Germans earlier. There's a Novo Institute in Germany who's working on a bunch of really quite unique approaches where mechanization and technology can get you to a textile-grade fiber. Field retting doesn't really work well. When you look at the interface between a farmer and his factory and time and weather and all that, it's really complex. The Chinese are doing it at a really no technology level. But there's things like biological decortication where you use industrial silage bag technology with an inoculant to use a bacteria to do it. It appears to give you the finest fiber in the world. At least that's what some of the research coming out of Germany is. And so this is a way to almost eliminate the bulk of the labor. And this is a way to compete with the Chinese by having a higher quality product.
Gentlemen, I'm just going to open up a question to the panel. I've got some parties that are interested in a palm oil replacement and are looking at potentially hemp oil for foodstuffs or cosmetics. I wonder if you guys could elaborate on that. If it is a direct replacement for palm oil in foodstuffs or in cosmetics, there's some issues, there are processing issues that need to be navigated through, or if it's even feasible at all.
So the question was, in regards to palm oil, is hemp oil a good substitute for palm oil in cosmetics and in foodstuffs, and what are some of the obstacles that we face with hemp oil as a replacement for palm oil?
No, as far as compared it against palm oil, I don't know much about palm oil. As far as hemp oil in like pharmaceuticals and nutraceuticals, it's being used quite extensively. I know Bed Bath & Beyond came out with an entire hemp line that uses hemp oil. I'm not sure if it replaces palm oil entirely, but I know it's been used in lotions. We have some companies we partner with that take hemp oil and use our CBD for muscle salves and lotions. Dr. Bronner soap uses hemp oil a lot in their cosmetics. So as far as a direct replacement, I don't know about palm oil, but I know hemp oil is a very good ingredient in those products.
One of the biggest challenges there right now is processing capacity. So part of the thing is, palm oils and canola oil and, those things have big factories behind the capabilities of what they're able to bring to the table. And while hemp seed oil and, traditional cold press kind of technologies, they're out there, they're not really prolific here in the United States. And so for any of us as farmers to be able to go out and actually compete on that kind of space, the technology and the industry behind it isn't quite there for us yet, but at least from everybody that I've spoken to about the same topic.
On that note, I'm going to ask each of the panelists just to give a couple of closing thoughts, and then we are going to break for about 10 minutes and get our next panel up here.
Well, I'd just like to thank Congressman Polis, Mara, City of Loveland, and everybody else who worked to put this on together, and all the panelists that are here today, everybody that showed up. And there's a lot of opportunities available for farming, processing, manufacturing, marketeering, promoting. Going forward in the hemp industry, we're at the very beginning stages. We really don't even have an infrastructure yet. We're still 3 to 5 years out, so be patient and, show up at events, get involved, network, and let's rock this thing.
So yeah, I just wanted to say thanks for having me out, and thanks for everybody for coming. This is cool. I mean, I'm right down the street too, and my processing lab is right down the street. It's neat to see all this right up here. One kind of closing remark for all the folks that are going to rush out and be growing CBD. This is something I've talked about, I think, with most of the folks up here too, is that, as you're laying out, this is an entrepreneurship panel, right? So as you're laying out your pro formas and your business planning, if you're not calculating, the cost of this commodity to be about 1/10 of what it is today, then you're going to miss this boat, because, certainly there's a very high price on it right this second per milligram. By comparison, THC, which is incredibly popular, sells for about $0.01 a milligram, and currently CBD is 5x that, can be more, right? I mean, you hear prices from the West Coast that are just completely ludicrous, and I know that's one of the things that Bill next to me was setting out to help solve, is to just end the silliness and, get people into a slight reality check. And so one thing as an entrepreneur I would say is, if you're going out and you're planning on, a pro forma model that supports, exorbitantly high prices based on a deficiency in the market overall, that's a model that you probably have about another 10 to 12 months on before I think that's going to go away. So I think, traditional sound business practices are as important as anything else, right? Don't just focus on a commodity, focus on, what the next products that you can help collaborate with, right? I mean, focus on being innovative with the products that you're making, rather than just, going out and doing it because it, seems neat, or, there's a huge need for it right this second, or, significant capital gain.
It's amazing how often we agree on stuff. It's an entrepreneurship panel, and I didn't bring up what our model is. We are a agricultural producers cooperative. It is owned by the farmers. We have no investors. 100% of the benefit accrues to the farmer who grows the product. That's ground floor. I mean, ground floor is the soil, the work, the labor, the equipment, the machinery, and David's quite right. There's 20 groups that came to Colorado to dominate the CBD market, and I do guarantee every one of them's going to lose their money. You look at what is a lot of money to a farmer, and I don't think anyone's going to grow a plant better than a farmer who's been at it 30 years, compared to some wild, crazy investor from Wall Street. And we look at the models out there now. If a farmer's going to make 5 times per acre what he ever made before, and that's 95% cheaper than the target price in every business plan I've seen, David is right. And it's an agricultural crop, and I think the farmers should benefit. In the conventional supply models, you go into a grocery store, you spend $1, farmer got a nickel. Well, we're kind of proposing the farmer take a dime and cut the price 90%. So it's not conventional entrepreneurship, but it's an old model that goes way back, community owned. Thank you.
Again, I wanted to thank you for having me and thank all of you for being here. One thing I would challenge everyone is to go out and get active, learn more about hemp, learn more about what the plant can do, and then talk to people about it, educate people. I still talk to people every day, and they think hemp, and can you smoke my shirt? They think it's marijuana. They think we're growing hundreds of acres so everyone can get stoned, and that's just not the case. I mean, it's a great plant. It's a great, can do a lot of really good things for yourself, for the earth. Get educated about it, learn more about it, get active, help with the bills that are in Congress right now on a federal level to help get hemp off the Controlled Substances Act. And just talk to people about it, learn about it, talk to people about it, just help grow grassroots, knowledge base and share what you've learned with people.
Thank all of you for coming. This is great, and thank you for hosting. So a couple real important messages. We're all working together in Colorado as a community to promote growing and bringing hemp products to market. There's so many people that depend on medicine, and I know that's a bad word in CBDs, but there's people that are suffering and people that are reaching out to try to buy CBD oils, and it's very expensive, and thank goodness the price is coming down. And that's what we're up here. We want to proliferate the growing, the cultivation, the harvesting, and the extraction of these great things that can come from hemp. So it's just not the medicinal, it's the clothes, it's the fabric, it's the paper, it's the plastic, it's everything. The tens of thousands of products that we can make from hemp in this country that will invigorate local farming communities that are in desperate need for rebirth. There's dying communities all over this country, and this one plant can help energize rural America. So what we're doing in Colorado and Kentucky and Virginia, we really need to work together, and we need to support our elected officials and empower them to bring this really important message to Washington. Let's legalize it, and let's get it done.
Thank you very much. We're going to take about a 5-minute break while we get the next panel set up, and then we will talk about legislation.
Okay, everybody, we're going on a 5 to 10 minute break. I guess the entrepreneur panel was a bunch of CBD people. Please don't be misled. CBD is just one of the byproducts of hemp, one of the many, many byproducts of hemp. See you guys in about 10.